Good day, culinarians. Today we're going over chapter 25. We're going to be doing chapter 25, which is breakfast preparation, page 773. And like before, with your tests, you're going to be taking a test, a written test on this chapter, along with your practical test. With your written test, make sure you save all your tests, because at the end, on your final, all the questions for the final exam will be coming from all these written tests that you're doing. So make sure you hold on to your tests. As we go through this chapter, I'll be pulling a lot of information out of the book. If you have any questions, shoot me an email or write down your questions when you come into class. You can ask me the questions in class, and I'll try to get the correct answer for you. All right, so starting off, chapter 25, page 774. Get into eggs, understanding eggs. All right, composition of the eggs. You got the yolk and the white in the egg. If you look on page 774, you'll see a description of the egg with the shell, thin white, the yolk, thick white, the air cell, and the chessae, which is that membrane. That membrane holds that yolk to the center of the egg. Also looking at the egg, you're going to see that air cell at the top of the eggs. You guys ever cooked hard-boiled eggs? And once you finish cooking the hard-boiled eggs, you always have that little dimple at the top. That's the air going in, okay? If you cook a fresh egg, if any of you guys raise your own chickens and you have your fresh chickens, you go ahead and hard-boil those eggs, you're not going to have much of that cell, that air pocket in the eggs. The older the egg is, the larger that pocket or that dimple on the egg when you cook it hard boiled it. So if you boil off some eggs and there's a huge dimple there, that means there's a lot of air that got into the egg, and that egg is very old. So you got to be careful of that. Page 775, we get into the grades and the quality of the egg. Best grade egg is double A. AA is the best egg you can use. That's what we use in the food industry, all restaurants, commercial. That's what you're going to use in your restaurants. It's double A eggs. Those are the best. Okay. Maintaining quality eggs. Keep eggs. Eggs can keep for several weeks. You want to try to keep them in a cooler around 36 degrees. That's the ideal temperature. Not too cold, not too warm. 36 degrees is the ideal temperature for storing your eggs. On page 775, they talk about food operations. Most food operations, most recipes use a large grade egg. So double A egg, and it's large. So if you look at most recipes, they call for an egg, but the egg they're talking about is a large egg. On page 775, there's a little chart there about classification of the eggs. The jumbo, extra large, large, medium. If you notice on large egg, 24 ounces for a dozen eggs, which means each egg is about 2 ounces, okay? So if you're doing a recipe, a standard recipe, if you change that, go into a larger egg or go into a smaller egg, that's gonna skew up your recipe on how much egg product goes in there. So make sure you always use large eggs in the restaurant industry. Keep in mind, 1 egg is 2 ounces. Page 776, getting into the market forms of eggs. Fresh eggs and shells, frozen eggs, dried eggs. Fresh eggs and shells, you're all familiar with it. It's what you're using at your house. In most restaurants, you use the fresh eggs. Crack them out of the shell, scramble them up, flip them over, however you're going to do it. The frozen eggs, they come in whole eggs, egg yolks, egg whites, and some have extra yolks in them. The reason why you get in frozen eggs like that, you get the whole eggs in. A lot of restaurants, especially that are doing large quantity of service, if you're feeding 300 or 400 people for breakfast and you're making scrambled eggs, you're not going to crack 30, 40 dozen eggs every morning for that. You're going to get in these liquid frozen eggs that are whole eggs. They're already scrambled in a container. They come in a 1-quart container, frozen. To thaw them out, you put them in your walk-in cooler for a couple days. They'll thaw it out. If you're thawing them out in your walk-in cooler, make sure you put them in a pan, either a sheet pan or a 200 pan or something, because they're frozen in a container, but if that container is cracked or has a hole in it, when the products are thawing out, that's going to start dripping all over your walk-in cooler. So you want to make sure you have that in some sort of pan just to catch it. Plus, on the outside of that carton, it's going to be ice from being frozen, and as it thaws out, the condensation from the outside of the package will start dripping. So get a little extra water in your cooler. On the egg whites, a lot of times bakers, if someone does a lot of baking and they need egg whites for baking, they'll buy in the frozen egg whites. Okay, if you're running a restaurant, you get a buffet, you got someplace that has omelets, and you're making omelets to order. A lot of people are eating egg white omelets. Instead of separating all those eggs, pull out some frozen egg whites, thaw it out. When you get an order, just pour it up and make yourself an omelet. Egg yolks, same with baking. A lot of recipes call for yolks only. Yolks only. So instead of cracking up the eggs, splitting them, and then not having anything to do with the whites, people just get into frozen egg yolks. You got dried eggs, same thing. Whole eggs, yolks, and whites. Usually those you just add water and go. A lot of commercialized places will use that. You got egg substitutes, different types of egg substitutes. Egg substitutes can be useful in several dishes for scrambling eggs. But the thing is, there's egg substitutes that contain no egg. It's a tofu or soy or some sort of base, but it doesn't contain an egg. It's just an egg substitute. If you're using an egg substitute, sometimes they're made out of flours or whatever they're made out of, but they're a substitute and they're not a real egg. Okay, you can't substitute those for baking. Okay, because in baking you're going to need the protein, the stuff coming from the egg. So an egg substitute you can't really bake with. So keep that in mind. General cooking practices, principles for eggs on page 776. Talk about whole eggs. They cook about 156 degrees. Custards, if you're going to make a custard, you want to cook that at least to 175 for the eggs to be cooked for a custard. But if you're just using regular scrambled eggs, you want to make sure you cook them to 156 degrees. Page 777. Get into sulfurs and foams from eggs. Sulfurs, eggs use low temperature and short cooking holding times. Best way to avoid green eggs is not to hold them for too long. So with the sulfur in the eggs, if you cook them and you have a buffet and they're sitting on the buffet for too long a period of time, they're going to turn green on you. Okay, so you got to be careful of that. Foams, when whipping up your egg whites, you want to try to get them at least to room temperature, and they'll whip up a lot easier for you. Egg whites foaming better at room temperature, so make sure if you're going to whip something up, your egg whites up, pull them out and let them sit out for a little bit. You don't want to take them straight from the walk-in cooler and try to whip them up. Can you whip them up? Yes, but they're going to take a long period of time. So you want to try to get them as room temperature, as warm as possible to whip them up. Page 778, we get into simmering eggs in the shell. They talk about boiled eggs, simmering eggs. If you're going to cook eggs in the shell, on page 778, they have different times for cooking or boiling eggs. You got a soft cook, 3 to 4 minutes. Hard cooked, 12 to 13 minutes. Basically a hard boiled egg, 12 to 13 minutes. Now the time they're saying isn't from the time you put it on the stove. It's from the time the water comes to a simmer or very low boil. Then you put the egg in. So if you're doing a soft boiled egg, once that water starts simmering, then you put the egg in the water, let it simmer 3 to 4 minutes, pull it out. Same with hard cooked egg. Let the water come to a low simmer, put the eggs in there, and then cook it for 12 to 13 minutes. 779, they get into eggs Benedict. When we get into sauces, I'm going to show you how to make a hollandaise sauce to make an eggs Benedict. For now, when you guys come in the kitchen, we're going to poach the eggs. So I'm going to show you how to poach the eggs. We're going to toast English muffin, put it on a toast English muffin with Canadian bacon, put the egg on top. We're going to make the whole Eggs Benedict except for the sauce. When we get into the sauce class, we'll do the Eggs Benedict again. You guys are going to create the holiday sauce and then put it on top and make your traditional Eggs Benedict. Bottom page 780, get in different types of eggs. Cooked eggs, you got sunny side up. Basically, you're putting the eggs in the pan, letting it cook on the bottom. It's not going to cook on the top. Then you take it, put it on the plate, and serve it. You got your basted, basically the same way as sunny side up, except you're going to put a little water in there and then put a cover on there. It's going to baste in that water. Okay. You got eggs flipped over easy. When you guys are in the kitchen, I'm going to show you guys how to flip the eggs over easy. We're going to practice flipping the egg in a pan with a piece of toast. Once you guys learn how to flip that piece of toast, then we're going to switch to flipping eggs in a pan. I'll show you how to flip over a single egg in a pan and then 2 eggs in a pan. The reason why I want to get you guys used to flipping eggs, that's going to be used for different types of cooking. Once you get into saute work is basically the same action. Flipping the eggs, or you're flipping the pan, get that motion going on with your arm, flipping the pan. Pretty much the same motion in sauteing as you do in flipping the egg. So if you can flip the egg, which is very difficult to do, you should have no problem going into learning how to saute real easy. Page 781, down at the bottom, get into making baked eggs. If you're going to do baked eggs, a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll take say you take some broccoli, some diced ham, some cheese, mix that all together, put it into a dish, scramble up some eggs, put it in there in the dish, throw it in the oven, bake it off for 350, and you got a nice baked egg. Okay. Page 782, we get into scrambled eggs. When you scramble the eggs, crack your eggs, always crack your eggs on a flat surface. Crack your eggs on a flat surface, because if you crack it on the side of the bowl, what happens a lot of times, that shell will penetrate up inside the egg, and it could break off. And then when you go to put it in your dish to scramble it, the pieces of shell could end up in your bowl. Or if you're looking at doing an eggs over easy, you want the egg yolk whole. So if you crack it on the side of the bowl, that shell could penetrate up into the egg and break the yolk. So the yolk could be broken before it even comes out of the egg. So whenever you crack your eggs, you crack it on a flat surface. When you're scrambling the eggs, you crack them, put them in a dish, and scramble up. You want to scramble them really good with a fork or whisk or something. You want to incorporate some air in there. Plus, you're also scrambling up the white and the yellow together. When you go to scramble your eggs, or you go to make an omelet, you want that color of the scrambled eggs or omelet to be all yellow. If you have white spots in there, you end up with an omelet or scrambled eggs with different white spots in there. It's not as appealing as an all yellow scrambled egg or all yellow omelet. So you want to scramble them up really well when you go to scramble your eggs. Be careful not to overcook your eggs. If you overcook them, they can become too runny, too liquidy, and also turn green on you. Overcooked scrambled eggs have a tendency to turn green real quickly, so don't overcook your scrambled eggs. Page 783, get into the different types of omelets. You got American omelet and a French omelet. Okay, you're going to be doing both of those omelets in the kitchen. The French omelet, cook it over moderate heat. We're going to make a ham omelet. So we're going to make a ham French omelet, ham American omelet. French omelet, basic principle is French omelets, you're going to fold the sides on it. You're going to fold 2 sides on it, and then roll it onto your plate. The American omelet is basically a folded omelet. We're going to roll that onto the plate also. The French one has 1, 2 folds on it, then it's going to come over onto the plate, which I'll show you how to do that when we get into the kitchen. I'll show you how to do the American omelet. I'll show you how to do the French omelet. We're going to poach off some eggs in the kitchen, and we're going to flip over a couple of eggs, 1 to 2 eggs over easy in the kitchen. Page 784, it goes over the procedure of making a French omelet. We're going to be doing it a little bit different than what's in the book here. In the book here, it shows that you have your pan, you got your eggs in there, you use the fork to scramble up the eggs, then you put the mushrooms in there, then it shows you folding it over. The folding over part we're going to do, but the other parts we're not going to do, because we're using non-stick saute pans. And using non-stick saute pans, you don't want to put any kind of metal in there. So we're going to be using either a wooden spoon or a rubber spatula. Also, instead of laying the product in there, we're going to put the ham in the pan first, heat that up, then put the eggs in there, and then do the fold. Okay, I'm not a big fan of laying the product in there, because a lot of times when you lay that product in there, it's cold. Who wants to eat a cold omelet? This way, if you cook the product in the pan first, then put your eggs in there that are scrambled, and then fold it up, you're going to have a nice hot omelet every time. So we're going to do it just a little bit different than what's in the book. Page 785, they talk about the American style or folded omelet. We're going to do it the same way. We're going to put the ham in the pan, put the eggs in there, and then we're going to fold it over and put it on the plate. Page 785, get into frittatas or flat omelet. Frittata is basically a flat omelet. Frittata comes from Italy. Okay, so the frittata is from Italy. A lot of people think it's from it's a Spanish omelet, but it's not. Frittata is from Italy. Okay, basically what you're going to do is put all your ingredients together and then throw it in the oven and cook it off in the oven in the pan itself. And that'll be a frittata. Page 786, different types of frittata recipes they have there. They got the summer squash, spinach, and leek frittata. If you feel like making that at home, squash is coming right out. Squash is still in season right now, so I definitely make a squash omelet at home or a squash frittata at home. Page 787, get into souffles. When you get into Chef Paige's class with baking, pastry, and confection, she's going to show you how to make some souffles. I believe she'll show you how to do a sweet and a savory souffle, which are always fun to make. Basis of souffle, you got your base, usually from bechamel sauce. When we get into sauces, I'm going to show you guys how to make a bechamel sauce. So you got your bechamel sauce, you got your flavor ingredients, some sort of cheese, vegetable, meat, whatever you want to use for a souffle, if you're making it savory. And then egg whites beat. So you just combine all this together, put them in the souffle dish, pop in the oven, and it'll rise and puff up and look really nice. So that's a souffle. Page 788 has a recipe there for a cheese souffle. It talks about making a roux with the bechamel sauce, but there's a cheese souffle on page 788. 789, we get into custards. With custards, you're going to bake them off. You're going to make a basic batter out of egg yolks and cream. And that's your basic custard. And you're going to put different things together. Usually you put some sort of sugar sweetening in there when you make the custard. You're also going to make, when you get into baking class or pastry and confection, Chef Paige is going to show you how to make Scramble Eggs, which is a big custard, which is really good. You also have quiches. Quiches fall under custards because you're going to mix up some eggs and cream. The quiche, basically you can make a quiche either sweet or savory. Most of the time they will be savory. Classic quiche is quiche Lorraine with bacon, shallots. Whip it up together with some eggs and cream. Pour it in a pastry shell. Pour your eggs, pour your bacon, shallots in the pastry shell. Pour your custard over top. And take some shredded Swiss cheese, put that over it, and then bake it off in the oven. And that'd be your classic quiche Lorraine. Quiches are very good also for breakfast items or lunch items. Page 790, we get into breakfast breads and cereals. We've got pancakes and waffles. Pancakes and waffles, the batter are very similar, okay? The only difference between, one of the major differences between pancakes and waffles have more fat in it, Okay, you're going to incorporate some sort of fat, more fat into a waffle batter, whether it be eggs or oil, or butter or oil. But you're going to incorporate some extra fat into the waffle. Page 791, there's different recipes for pancakes and waffles. On your Moodle site, I'll also have recipes on there to make your pancakes and waffles if you want to make them at home. Page 792, get into buckwheat pancakes. 792, you get into French toast. French toast is a great breakfast or brunch item. Most common fault in making French toast is not soaking the bread long enough. If you're going to do French toast, you want to use leftover or hard, almost stale bread. Get a French baguette, let it set overnight, slice it up. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll take a baguette, slice it up into pieces, let it set overnight. It'll dry out. You make your custard. Custard's just basically your eggs, your cream or milk, a little vanilla seasoning, some sugar, some cinnamon. Mix it up really good. And then you want to soak that bread in that custard so it absorbs it. Last thing you want to do is make a French toast, cut it open, and inside still white from the bread. You want that custard absorbed right into the center of that bread. So when you go to cook it off, it's the same color through and through. Page 793, recipe for cinnamon raisin French toast. You got your cereals, your oatmeals, your different types of cereals, your cream wheats, your grits. When you're making your cereals, whichever one you're going to do, oatmeal or grits, whatever you're going to keep out there, just be careful, don't overcook them, or else it'll get too mushy on you. 795, getting into cooking meats, some breakfast meats. Cooking bacon, best way to cook bacon, put it on a sheet pan, throw it in the oven. Ideal temperature, we had a representative from Hormel Pork coming out, talked to students one time. He told us the best temperature to cook bacon at is 312 degrees. 312 degrees, you have less shrinkage, the bacon will cook more evenly. So you want to cook the bacon at a low temperature. Usually, if you're working in the kitchen, most of the times the ovens will be set at either 300 degrees or 325 degrees. 325 degrees is fine. That's why I cook my bacon at. Put it on a sheet pan, throw it in the oven. You'll have less shrinkage. If you try to cook it on top of the stove in a saute pan, the bacon will shrivel up into little pieces. If you cook it in the oven, it'll stay nice and long, nice and whole, nice and flat. Pull that out, and it makes for some really good crisp bacon. Other meats, you got your hams. You got Canadian bacon. Okay, Canadian bacon is basically a boneless pork loin that is cured and smoked, just like ham. Okay, so it's more of a pork loin. The Canadian bacon we're going to use here for the Eggs Benedict, it's going to be the American style. I was up in Canada about 10 years ago for the first time, and when I was in for breakfast, I ordered a side of Canadian bacon, and it came out, and it was the smoked ham. It looked just like a pork chop, a boneless pork chop. So that's true Canadian style bacon. It's a pork loin that's cured. Then, of course, you got all kinds of different breakfast sausages that you can use. So that's it on breakfast cooking. Okay, when you guys come in the kitchen, you can be flipping some eggs, poaching some eggs, making an American omelet, making a French omelet. Like I said, any questions, shoot me an email, write them down, and get with me at class time. Thank you very much.